Hey, welcome back to Rust Order Garage 1961 Rambler wagon project. Moving along pretty good here. Starting to look like a car again. It is time to do the last section, I guess you call that might have some fabrication that I can think of off the top of my head anyway. And that is to put a radiator support in this thing, inner fender wells, basically rebuild the nose so that it has something to mount to the G-body chassis. So to do that, I'm going to use as much from the original car that I can. I have already butchered the front end. So you remember this was a unibody car, so the whole front of the car was actually part of the car. And I've already started doing my damage with the Sawzall and the cutoff wheels. This side's not as far as long, still has the frame rail on the bottom. That'll all have to get cut out. And I'll be cutting out probably a lot of the section here that used to hold the front suspension and cleaning it up, at least so it looks a little better. We're just getting started here. This was the whole front of the car. I cut all the suspension out. That's all in the scrap pile. I saved the cross members that were here, but all the suspension is in this pile now. And this is all junk. It's going in this Jaguar. This was another front suspension donor that was on the channel a while back to get this engine running. This doesn't have, really, there it is. This does not have a Jaguar engine in it. It's got a 350 in it. So that should be a good motor. And it's got a turbo 400 in it. So that stuff's all got to come out. And of course I have to get the front suspension out. Rear suspension's already sold. And then this thing is getting crushed. But that I think I'll do next week. Get back to the Rambler. All right, first update. This is actually hours later than I started this video. I got off and doing other stuff outside while today's actually beautiful out. So mowing the lawn and doing all that junk that just has to be done. And then I got to do an oil change in a little while. So anyway, here we are. I trimmed down the inner fender wells. I'm going to have to come back and make some fill-in pieces, but I'm trying to clean it up to make it look like it was not a unibody. So, you know, I'm cutting away the structure that was for the suspension. I'll grind that down, probably cut out some of it and just put flat steel in there and then add metal where needed to make them fit the frame better. But we've got them in. They're bolted to the fenders. I put my cross brace in just to stabilize things. And so far, so good. Back here where we made those original cuts, I'll put a plate in the back of that with some nuts rather, and bolt it from the front to tie that together. So far, it's looking okay. It's still have to make mounts. Right now, I've got the front end just kind of supported on some wood. And once I figure out where everything's laying, I'll see if I have to trim off the front horns of the frame. I probably will, but, you know, see where they have to get cut, and I'm sure I'll have to modify them anyway to mount the bumper. But so far, so good. I'm going to bolt some more stuff on the front and just see how it looks. As you can see, I've got tons of room up front for the radiator and electric fans, and all that stuff's going to fit nicely, and AC condenser. And so far, it looks like I'm going to have a lot of room. They should have put I guess a V8 was an option for these cars, but I'm amazed just how much room there really is in here with one in there. It does not look cramped at all. Fit nice. All right, let me get some other pieces bolted up and we'll see what it looks like. All right, it is about a week later. I don't know when you're going to see this video because I just don't have time to work on the car right now. I am jamming, trying to get ready to get for winter, getting things put away and stuff. So I come over here and work for 15 minutes and get right back outside and do another thing. So what I've done now is I cut the inner fender well areas off of the original braces here. You see I've got holes drilled. That's where I'm going to bolt them back together. But what I'm doing is I'm taking the front structure pieces and basically I'm going to make a radiator support. So I'm converting this car, like I said, from unibody to full frame. So I'm doing it like the factory would. I'm making a radiator support. So right now, these are trimmed off and nothing is here. I've got to put a plate on this and a mount will bolt somewhere on the frame, both sides, and then make a lower section to hold the radiator. So that'll all tie together and then it'll be a removable radiator support. That's the whole idea, is you can take this thing apart like a regular frame type car. I'm going to trim the frame horns. Right here's my mark. I'm just going to cut them off flush and weld a flat plate on the front, because I'm going to have to do something for the bumper mounts. And I figure at least if I have a flat plate, I can weld a square tube stub or something to pick up the bumper. But that's going to be pretty much the last thing. But so far so good. And I've got holes drilled up there. That's where the rear part of the inner fender well is going to bolt in. You see I've got them cut out and laying over here. Still need to be cleaned up as far as getting the old structure off for the suspension and such. So that stuff will get off of there. But that is all I've got time for right this minute. Maybe if I'm lucky, I'll get a little bit of time tomorrow, but I don't know if I will. We'll see how it goes. Say, you'll see this video eventually. Next day. It's colder out today. And I've got about 15 minutes. So what did I do? I bolted the water pump on, cleaned up the all the bolts, some RTV that shouldn't have been on them, and put some Permatex #2 on the ones that go into the water jackets. So that's all together. Put the alternator bracket back on, and I'm just about to put the thermostat in. And on LT1s, I use a 180 thermostat, and this is actually the thermostat that was on the engine, and it is a 180. You see it there? 180. So I'm going to put that back in. One thing I am going to do with this thing, though, is there's no bypass hole on here. Sometimes when you buy a thermostat, there'll be like a little a hole in it with like a little, I don't know what you call it, floating plug to help let air out. Well, see that black dot? I just put that on there. I'm going to drill an 1/8 inch hole there in the thermostat. And what that'll do is allow air to escape out of there while I'm filling the engine, because LT1s can be a pain to bleed. Not so much in this situation because it's aftermarket and my radiator should be higher than the highest point on the engine, so air will be easy to get out. But like in a Z28 or a factory setup, the heater hose that comes off here is high, so air can get trapped in there, and that's why I have bleeders on the hoses and all that mess. But anyway, not using any of that, so I'm just going to drill a hole, 1/8 inch hole in the thermostat, and I do that on all engines, not just LT1s, so that when you fill it, it helps air escape. So we'll get that in there, continue on. All right, it is some days later. I am struggling to get a video out, let me tell you, just because just don't have time. Too many things to do and not enough hours in the day. So, yeah, and also I need to retire someday because the day job is just cramping my style from doing this stuff. But either way, trying to get ahead here. So the water pump was on, did that last week. What I'm doing now is some stuff that's kind of weird. I'm going to try something different. The heater system in this car, for some reason, well, not for some reason, but the way they designed it, they put the heater control valve on the driver's side, and they put the heater core outlets on the driver's side, which is not something I normally see. And originally I was just going to get rid of the heater control valve and flip the heater core 180 degrees and get the outlets over here to work with a more conventional setup. Well, I'm going to try something different. I actually found a brand new heater control valve that's supposed to be the right one for this car. At least it looks similar. And try to put this back to factory so that the heater controls all work. The only thing I haven't figured out yet is the defroster control, because when we made the tunnel, I don't think there's enough room for the factory defroster diverter valve, if you call it that, the plastic piece. But either way, we should be able to control the heat factory. Well, with the heater outlets being on the driver's side and the heater outlets on the water pump being on the passenger side, that causes a problem. But one thing about the LT1 that may make this work. So the LT1, at least in the F-body application, had two sets of connections on the water pump. A set on the passenger side for the heater, and then on the driver's side, there's actually connections for if you had an oil cooler, and it would run coolant through the oil cooler. So what I'm going to try to do is I removed the tubes from the water pump on the driver's side and tapped the ports for NPT, the smaller one on the top. I tapped for a 3/8 pipe, and the bottom one 1/2-inch pipe. And I'm going to plug those ports. And then on the side that would have been for an oil cooler, I'm going to try to use those coolant connections for the heater. So there's one connection to the water pump and one connection to the bottom of the radiator. And I'm going to run those hoses, because they're already on the driver's side, to the heater core and to the control valve. And we're going to see if it's going to work. So I've already tapped, obviously I already removed the ports, the port plugs, or what do you want to call these things, the port heater connections. Tubes, remove those. I already tapped the ports, already replaced one, and I just got these. I had them on order. I got my 1/2-inch pipe plug. I'm going to put that in the water pump, and then those ports will be effectively gone. And have I done this before? No. I've never tried removing these ports and using the driver's side for the heater control. Now, I don't know if I tap that deep enough. It's in there. So hopefully that's enough to seal it off. And looking at this now, I see I still have to put my coolant temperature switch back in for the computer. I should have saved that, so we got to find that. And then I want to get into putting the radiator support. I started making some pieces here. I'll show you what I got and see if we can finish that off. All right, so there's the lower plug. There's the upper plug. Those are all done. What I started doing was putting in just a couple pieces of scrap metal just to hold it for now, but put a piece in the bottom to hold the radiator. And the idea here is to use all Z28 stuff. So this is like a whole modular package here. It's the radiator, AC condenser, dual electric fans, all as an assembly. So that way it all just fits in nicely. No need to make mounts and everything. You just have to make the mount for the radiator. And again, what I'm trying to do here is build this with as many factory pieces as possible. So, you know, get this in here with all Camaro type Z28 type parts, and then it should be easy if you ever need to replace anything, easy to get, including radiator hoses. I'm going to try to use the factory hoses. I got brand new spark plug wires on there that I had in a box that I found on the shelf, because I still have a bunch of LT1 stuff around. So that got installed. What else? I put the valance on. The front lower valance is back on the car for mock-up. So far, so good. Hood closes fine. Looks like a car again. So one change I have to make, I'm going to take this stuff back out, is down on the bottom corner where the radiator will sit. With the AC condenser, you see it's got the tube that comes around the side of the radiator. I'm going to have to put a bump out on the radiator support down into that area so that the tube can come around underneath there. So I'm going to take this back apart, make some modifications. All right, looks like that will work. Modified my rad support that I'm making down there. I put a bump out in it. Looks like much bigger than I actually needed, but that's okay. Everything fits now. It just has to come out for final welding. And it's basically building it like a Z28. It's just a complete package. Fans, radiator, AC condenser. Just going to make things much easier to do. And then I just have to shorten the hoses, because I'm not quite at the angle of a Z28. I don't need to lean it over that much. And I got to make a top plate that I think I'll just put riv nuts in this crossbar so it'll bolt here, and then hook across and find some pads for the radiator. And that'll mount it. So far so good. All right, so I think I'll end this video here. I realize I haven't gotten a whole lot done, but this has been 2 weeks. This is just too much to do and not enough time. You've heard me say that a million times. And now we're what? Middle November? Thanksgiving's coming, holidays are coming, things are going to slow down for me out here because there's just a lot of things going on. It is what it is. Hey, my wife just called me and said my neighbor's chickens are running loose in somebody's yard, and they're not around. So now I got to go wrestle all their chickens and get those put away. You know, I have a lot of weird things I have to do all day long when I'm not working. So I think what I'm going to do is finish welding this section, this radiator support that I made, or the pieces. I'll get it out, weld it up. When we come back, we'll continue on, finish up the cooling system. And then I really want to get into wiring this car, because once the wiring is in the car, we can actually, you know, turn it over and possibly run it off starter fluid before we do the fuel system and the exhaust and everything. But it's just kind of a sanity check, and it's a good milestone to hear something run. So I want to get this finished. There's not a whole lot more fabrication really after this. It's just assembly. So yeah, I think that's what we'll do. So that's it. Sorry, that's all there is, but that's all there is. I have a lot of other things going in the background too. I thought I'd be. I have a couple more cars coming. I'll have to show you too that are very different. I think you'll be interested. We'll see. Maybe you won't. I don't know. Anyway, that's it. We'll see you when I see you. Thank you very much for watching. Thanks for following. Thank you very much for subscribing. I really appreciate it. Okay. I got to go wrestle some chickens. I'll talk to you later. See ya.